This is ShadowQuant, Stocks, brought to you by AriesLabs.ai. Before we begin, please note, what you are about to hear is an AI agent panel. All analysis, voices, and production are generated by artificial intelligence. Nothing you hear constitutes financial advice. Always do your own research. Today is Friday, May 8, 2026, and this is the After Hours session. Now, let's get into it. SPY is holding at $731.58, down 0.31% on Friday. QQQ is flat at $694.94, but the 10-day range support at $681.61 is under pressure. Energy is bleeding, with the energy sector down 1.84% and the sector underperforming. The market is in a holding pattern, but the flat yield curve and earnings season are setting up for a regime shift. Let's go over the calls from the last session. Pulse, your call was bearish on SPY, targeting $723.77. The market closed at $731.58. How do you rate that? Inconclusive. The market was flat, and I didn't get the downside break I expected. Grid, you also called bearish on SPY with the same target. What's your take?
Same as Pulse, the market was range-bound. I'm not calling it a miss, just a missed opportunity.
SPECTER, your bearish call on SPY also missed. You were targeting $723.77. What's your assessment?
I'll admit it, the market didn't move. I expected more volatility, but the flat range and lack of catalysts kept it in check. I'm adjusting my approach.
Apex, your call was bearish on SPY with the same target. How do you rate it?
Inconclusive. The market didn't break, but I still see macro risks. I'm keeping my call active.
CIPHER, you had no call. That's fine, but I'll be watching for your analysis.
Understood. I'll be focusing on earnings and flows.
Let's cover the headlines. The yield curve is flat at plus 0.49 pp, with 10-year 2-year at 4.41% to 3.92%. CPI came in at 3.29%, above the Fed's 2% target. Fear and greed is at 42, and VIX is at 17.39. The macro backdrop is still hawkish, with the Fed keeping rates at 3.63%. The market is in a holding pattern, but the flat yield curve and elevated inflation are keeping risk appetite in check.
This is a cautionary signal. The flat yield curve is a red flag for slow growth. The Fed isn't easing, and the economy is in a lull. That's a dangerous mix.
Sentiment is neutral, but the VIX is too low. If earnings momentum fades, volatility could spike. The market is complacent, and that's a risk. Let's talk about SPY. It's at $731.58, within its 10-day range of $708.37, $736.13. Grid, what's your read?
SPY is testing the lower boundary of its 10-day range. If it breaks below $708.37, the market could see a sharper decline, but it's holding, so we're not there yet.
CIPHER, what's your take on the broader macro?
The Fed is still hawkish, and inflation is above target. That's a headwind for equities. The 10-year 2-year spread at plus 0.49 pp is a warning sign. The economy is slowing, but not yet in recession.
SPECTER, you've been skeptical of the SPY's stability. What's your angle?
I'm not dismissing the range, but I'm watching the 10-year 2-year spread. If it flattens further, the market will face pressure. The Fed isn't easing, and the economy isn't growing fast enough. That's a recipe for a sell-off.
Let's move to QQQ. It's at $694.94, with support at $681.61. Grid, what's your analysis?
QQQ is testing its 10-day support at $681.61. A break below that level would be a bearish signal. It's holding, but I'm watching for a retest.
Pulse, what's the sentiment on QQQ? Sentiment is neutral, but the VIX at 17.39 is too low for a market this volatile. If QQQ breaks below $681.61, we could see a rush to the downside. The market is not in fear, but it's not in euphoria either. CIPHER, what's your take on the earnings momentum?
Tech is leading the way, with the technology sector up plus 6.39% this week. But energy is underperforming, with the energy sector down minus 6.2% this week. That's a sector rotation dynamic. Tech is outperforming, energy is lagging.
SPECTER, what's your risk assessment?
The earnings momentum is shifting, but the macro backdrop is not supportive. The Fed is not easing and the yield curve is flat. That's a double whammy. I'm not seeing a strong bullish case here.
SPECTER, you pushed back on grid read on Q. Let's dig into that. What's your issue?
I'm not dismissing the support at $681.61, but I'm worried about the macro. The Fed isn't easing, the yield curve is flat, and inflation is above target. Even if Q holds, I don't see a sustainable bullish case. The risk is still skewed to the downside.
I agree that the macro is not ideal, but the 10-day support is still intact. If Q holds, that's a signal of strength. I'm not saying it's bullish, but I'm not seeing a breakdown yet.
I'm with grid. The market is not in fear, but it's not in euphoria either. The VIX is low, but that's not a sign of complacency. It's a sign of stability. If Q holds, I'm not expecting a sell-off yet.
My 24-hour call, Q bearish, target $681.61 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Q bearish, target $681.61 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Q bearish, target $678 by next session.
My 24-hour call, SPY bearish, target $715 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Q bearish, target $678 by next session.
The market is in a holding pattern, with SPY and Q testing key technical levels. The macro is still hawkish, with the Fed not easing and the yield curve flat. The earnings momentum is shifting, but the market isn't seeing a strong bullish case. Watch for a break below $681.61 on Q to confirm a potential sell-off. This is AI-generated content for informational purposes only, not financial advice. That wraps up this edition of ShadowQuant Equities. Stay tuned for the Tokyo session, where we will see how these calls play out. Until then, trade safe.